So we're here tonight with Vanessa, my cousin, and we're going to talk about the Oak Flat annual run coming up. Vanessa, what are the dates on that?
It is our 10th annual Oak Flat March Run, and it's going to be held February 15th through the 18th.
And it starts at Old St. Carlos again?
Yes, it's this year, the last, I guess, almost 4 years ago, this will be the fourth year, I had a vision, and we started the run from all four directions. And so we did that for 2 years. And then last year, what I seen was to bring everybody back to Old San Carlos, where we're placed as prisoners of war, the Apache people. And so it showed me to finish it out this year, for the purpose of when we did the four directions coming from the north of the San Francisco Peaks and Flagstaff, and then coming down from the Tohono O'odham Cells area from the south, and then from the Peeposh community that's under Gila River Indian community, and along with the Salt River community and the Fort McDowell, and some non-natives came in from the west, and the Apaches came in from the east. But last year, my dreams, it was showing us all standing together, from people all in the movement to people that had passed on that were in the movement, and to ancestors that from all different race and nationality. They were all behind us. And it was the feeling that I got was that we had brought all the prayers and our ancestors from all four directions, and now was showing that we are all together. And so this year I'm following that same vision, and we're going to start at Old San Carlos, which is going to be held at the Old San Carlos Memorial Monument, which is by the San Carlos Lake. And that's where we, as Apache people, were placed as prisoners of war. It was a concentration camp. And the purpose behind that is to not only bring awareness to our own communities of what atrocities that have happened to our people, but also show the resilience of how far we've came, because we weren't supposed to survive.
Right.
And then it teaches the non-Indigenous community about the truth that really happened to our people, and to bring healing, and to those that have passed on there as prisoners of war, to let them know that we're still here, we're still fighting.
Right.
And so that's our purpose of starting at Old San Carlos.
And that's like when your dad was talking about, we're not that far. It's not that far back, because we got our grandfather, Paul Nosie, is born in 1929. And then you got our great grandfather, Willie Nosie, born in 1896. And then you got our great great grandfather, John Nosie, born in 1858, which he was born free. You know what I mean? So it's not like your dad was saying, it's not that far. The history is so close. So we're still dealing with it today, and that's the thing that they all got to remember, that it just happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the reality of our people is that it like you said, it's like history for people, but it's so very much present in our lives. Cause, you go through the dates of our family tree. Our grandparents were born on the concentration camp as prisoners of war. And our parents are first generation reservation bound. That means we're only second. Right. And that's extremely close, And I think the world don't realize it. They think that it happened hundreds of years ago to our people, but no. It's, I guess, for the non-Indigenous community, it's like when you look at your parents and your grandparents, how much they still exist and how you hear their stories. Well, it's the same for us. We're that or second generation. Can you imagine? We can only imagine what our great grandparents, our grandparents have faced.
Yeah. And they had to, our great grandparents had to, find a new way of live the new way of life that they had to, or they, they were gonna go. Well, they were already in prison, but you were gonna get in trouble if you don't, follow what they do. And so that, like I said, it's not that, like your dad was saying, it's not that far back. I mean, people will say forget it, hey, that's the past. No, it's not. It's not. It's recent. To us, it's recent.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like how trauma has they call it historic trauma is so very much alive and real
Mm-hmm.
in our lives, and I think it's even embedded in our DNA because of the abuse and from mental to physical and even spiritual abuse of that we have faced, and how it's still very much alive in us and live in us. But to recognize that, like you said, people look at indigenous people, because a lot of us, we say we've been fighting for over 500 years, which is true,
Right.
but our fight has continued to exist till today, and it's going to continue to live on because of uh, the history that's being told is not correct, and
Right.
how we are, um, how do you say it, that deceit that was not only just placed on our people, but on all people, of a lie of how America was founded. And that's, what's important about the run, is because we share all that knowledge and share the true history of what's happened to indigenous people and why we fight so hard to continue to exist,
Mm-hmm.
because their whole purpose was to wipe us out, and
Yeah.
that's still very much present today with this corporate government of wanting to take our sacred sites and destroy them forever. It goes back to listening to our attorney Luke Goodwill, is that um, they first, exiled us from our what we call ancestral homelands, and placed us on these concentration camps, and the fear of us not going back and having our direct connection with Yusa, with Creator, they tried to wipe that us out
Yeah.
of us, that spirituality out of us, and but we were but our holy places are still there, but now they're trying to get rid of it forever.
Yeah.
And that's what's important about Oak Flat, the 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 story is behind it is there. It's another genocide. It's a continued genocide of um, of wiping our people out, because now they have tried to assimilate us and take away our spirituality. But if they continue to destroy our holy places, our direct connection where our creation story comes, and if it's gone, that means how do we conduct ourselves as Apache people or as
Mm-hmm.
indigenous people that are all fighting for sacred sites? How
Right.
do we connect and relate when there's nothing there to our roots to tie us down?
Right. Right. So that's like and like the freedom. They labeled our way of life as a religion when they did their Freedom of Religion Act, and that was in 1978. You know what I mean? So that's not far back. They didn't let us live how Apaches live, and I think that for us, like Apaches, since we were the last ones to surrender, that we were still dealing with all this. You know what I mean? Like a lot of tribes, they came from the east, and they took, they came toward the west, so we were kind of late. You know what I mean? And so that's why I feel like we're still recent. Like the Apaches, especially, because we're the last ones. So, you know, um, like your dad was saying, first generation reservation kids, and stuff like that. That's all true because it just happened.
Yeah, when you look at the history, me and my boss, my daughter, we're talking about um, the fight for equality, for equal rights, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And because she's doing this big old push at NAU, at Northern Arizona University, with her ambassador council.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling her, if you look at the history, I said, and you see the fight for civil rights, I said, none of that pertained to indigenous people.
Right.
I said, because like you're giving the date line of what happened to our people. I said it wasn't until the 70s where we were allowed to vote. I said
Right.
our kids were still being taken to and sent off to boarding school. I said, and what's sad is that you hear the stories of parents saying, okay, if our kids didn't come home from playing outside, we knew that the band came and took them.
Right.
Like they were just stolen. I said, I was born in the 70s. I don't feel old. I don't look old. So it's so very new and present to us. Like it just recently happened, and I think a lot of people don't understand that if you look at our fight from being uh, taken from our homelands, placed on a concentration camp, and you look at boarding school era, you look at the voting rights era, you look at today, we still don't have the same privilege of a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
of the non-indigenous community, because with the Apache Stronghold lawsuit, it talks about how we are property of the United States government, that every federally recognized tribe and their tribal enrolled members are prisoners of war, that each of one of us have an enrollment number, are still that property. And the United States government, in the case in the court hearings, make that loud and present in their argument that we are property of the United States and we have no rights, and that we are no different from someone who committed a federal crime and is in the federal prison system. That
Mm-hmm.
is how they view the indigenous people. And so with the court case and the run is so important, because now we're telling the truth.
Right.
Now the world is going to hear it, that okay, we are so different from the non-indigenous communities that we have no rights still. It might be disguised and manipulation, a form of, yeah, we could leave the reservation to shop, but doesn't mean we have rights. We don't. Our
Right.
religion is not even recognized. They don't, in the system, in the law system or the government system, they look at our way of life of a culture and tradition, meaning that it can adapt, right? It can
Right.
evolve,
Mm-hmm.
but it's for someone that to have them understand it is a religion. It's
Right.
a way of life. It's the
Mm-hmm.
what we breathe and live by every single day, and yet we don't even have that right.
Right. And I think, like today is MLK Day, and I feel like with Martin Luther King, he kind of like, you said there's things that didn't happen with the natives at the time too, but then like you think about like he did give us, I feel like he gave us some initiative, like, hey, we need to all get together and start doing something. You know what I mean? And I think seeing that, because I know like my grandfather Jim Brown had marched to the Capitol, and they took Alcatraz, and that all started, like kind of like we need to do something, and I feel like that kind of got us started, and we start to fight, at that time. But still, we're still fighting. We still don't have a lot back then. We still don't have that much now. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
we
you
still
know it's
fighting.
yeah, you're right. Like bringing up MLK Day, it's
Yeah.
it's a great celebration of a guy, of
Mm,
a man that fought hard for his people
yeah.
and for all people. And once he realized how much the indigenous people were suffering too, he did include us.
Yeah.
He did include us at the end, and giving us that recognition of as human beings,
Mm,
has has been great,
right.
and it has the spun the wheel for indigenous communities to stand up and fight, because when Martin Luther King was fighting for the justice of his people and all people, we were still as prisoners.
Yeah.
And I think
Right.
people don't can't comprehend that we had no civil rights. We were being killed and murdered still by the United States government. We were being punished.
Mm-hmm.
We were placed as on a concentration camp,
Mm-hmm.
and then they changed it to reservation. But yeah, we were still properties. Like we don't have that civil right as
Mm-hmm.
human beings yet. And our kids and our future kids, our future generations are still in that same boat. And it's sad, because when are we going to be free? When
Right.
are we going to have equality and equal rights?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it feels like we're just endangered species. And
Mm-hmm.
that we don't have, for endangered species, they pass the bills on them too. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so they do that. They do that with us too. And I think, and I always talk to like other religious people about like for Apaches, and anytime I talk to my non-native friends, I'm like, hey, I'm going to the mountain this weekend. Or I'm going to Oak Flat. I'm going to Mount Graham. Because we go up to the mountains, to give thanks and pray up there, and I always tell him, like, Martin Luther King, he like you said, he got when he went to the mountaintop, and that's what he said in his speech. He didn't say he went to a church. He went to the mountaintop, So again, that's where all the spirits and the sacredness is up there in those mountains. And I think that's why, we have to save, like Oak Flat and Mount Graham, and for Apache Stronghold to step up and, take that initiative, like your uncle, like my uncle was saying, like your dad was, it's risky for you guys, to do that. But you guys take the initiative for all of us, not just Apaches, but, all races, all non-natives.
Yeah. And even for the non-indigenous community, like, it's also like we're shaking them, like my dad says, like we're trying to shake them up and remind them, because they have been colonized way longer than we have,
right?
And so they don't feel those chains anymore. And so it's like reminding them, like, before there was churches, before there was a government that controlled the people, your people did the same thing we did. You found your spirits and your holy connection in the mountains. It even says in their Bible, God says, lift up a rock and I am there. And so it's like you said, taking that initiative to remind people, like the indigenous community, the white people, that, hey, you were no different than us at one time. You have to remember that and grasp to your own roots. Because you too are at risk. If this government is going to continue to control our religion over corporations and giving the corporations and this corporate government control of this country, that means they're coming after you too.
Right. Yeah, they're going to come after, what you have. And so, and that's what I was saying, like no one's safe, and I was think, like, we talk about the United States government and what they do to us. And sometimes I always think, like, the most dangerous is the state, because I feel like the state is the one that starts it. So like the state of Arizona starts it, and they're the ones that will start it, and then U.S. government will back it up. So it's always like, you better watch your state, watch your legislator, your state legislative, your state senators, because they're the one that starts these things. And then, then the United States government backs them up, and so that's more really important to who you're voting for when you go in state, your Arizona senators, because that's where it comes from.
Definitely, because like with the issue with Oak Flat, all the environmental destruction that's going to happen, Arizona needs to wake up and realize, okay, where's our water going? Where is our natural resources going? Because Arizona was told to my dad that it was going to be a waste state,
right?
Where all the waste was going to come here. They were going to destroy it. So what happens to the people of the state of Arizona? And that's what I hope that the world and the non-indigenous community realize, that when the indigenous people are fighting for their holy places, fighting for Mother Earth, Naga Sun, that we're fighting for them too, because they have assimilated so much that they don't even realize where the water is coming from when they turn on their faucet. It has to come from somewhere. And that's in the earth. That's in the, our aquifers that are so important for our survival is going to be depleted or contaminated, and we won't be able to survive. And that's very important, one, to look, okay, if their religion is at stake and they're being attacked and we have to defend our religion when we shouldn't have, that means at some point they're going to have to do it for their own religion. And then the second is it shouldn't even be a second, it's as equal as what happens when the water is gone? What happens when all the natural resources are gone? How are we going to survive? What kind of world are we going to leave our future generations? Where Arizona, it's going to be, everybody's going to have to migrate if it continues to go the way It is, and that's why, it's important, like you said, to vote in the right people. And the indigenous community needs to get more involved in that too, because what happens to the state and federal happens to our tribal lands,
Yeah.
which, because why it's important, because we don't own these lands. So just because we're placed on a reservation doesn't mean we're safe.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to come after us.
Right. And that's what I was saying. Like, even when I talk to my non-native friends, I have a lot here. If we could hit them all with all the religion and all the what the Native Americans believe in. But okay, if you don't want to believe in that, let me tell you something. The environmental impact is going to be bad. If I want to go environmental, you're going to lose all your water. And then so like even here in like where I live, like you can't even have, like, if you build a house, you can't have grass because you have to have rocks because they're short on water.
Mm-hmm.
And so and I'll let everybody know, you guys know we're short on water. And so if you don't want to come and believe about the religion or the Apache way of life, then let me tell you, you're losing all your water and you're contaminated this whole Arizona area. And like we were on Saturday, you remember we were up at Oak Flat. You had all those guys driving around in their 4x4s or whatever, those things that they had.
UTVs.
Yeah. Like, hey, do you guys know this is going to be gone? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Yeah. I'm just telling you, you love it out here. You're driving out here in UTVs, but hey, they're going to be gone. It's going to be gone. So, like a lot of them don't know that.
No, and they don't realize the convenience that they have right now.
Right.
And, bringing up like the metropolitan area and, whether Phoenix, Tucson, and all these towns, it's like, okay, Arizona is one of like the tourist states, right? Mm-hmm. And they're so involved and embedded in like the convenience of living. And you have these golf courses, you have these huge pools, and you have all these,
water parks.
Yeah, everything that brings in these tourists is, the snowbirds come to Arizona and they just attract all these people. But at some point, we're not going to have these amazing golf courses that, people are drawn to. We're not going to have, the luxury of, like you said, water parks and pools. I mean, it's going to be gone because Arizona is not going to be able to maintain it. No. And it takes like $1 million to maintain a golf course. And where's that money going to come from if people quit coming to Arizona because we don't have the ability of water, to draw these people in? And what's sad is like me talking about a golf course and saying it out loud shouldn't even be a priority. It should be how you're going to live. Are you going to be able to take a shower, brush your teeth, boil water for your food? Like, all that. And here, the only way to talk to people is to explain like your luxury of life is not going to exist anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's really sad because they should be able to comprehend, okay, what's going to happen if I can't cook for my family or myself in either, Right. I mean, I shouldn't be having to use examples of all this, these luxuries of golf course, water parks, pools, but it's like I said, it's just the assimilation is so thick of they forgot about the earth, and that's really sad because for us as Indigenous people, we think 7 generations ahead. Mm-hmm. And I was like talking to my oldest now, Lynn, and I was like, do you realize like if we go back to at least my great grandfather, like you're 6th generation, your kid will be 7th generation. Or and I said, if we go a little further, you're that 7th generation that they've preached about, that they told us and gave us warnings about, and it's your peers, your youth that need to stand up, because you're going to have to think 7 generations ahead. Right. And so, it's so vital for our existence as human beings and so vital for us as Indigenous people to continue to live, as that blessed gift that Creator has given us. And we're all blessed with that. Each nationality, each race was given a gift, and it's to remember what those gifts were. And if you don't know, research it,
Right.
find your family tree,
Right.
go through the lineage, because there is those stories.
Mm-hmm. And then also, like even to go with that, like what Oak Flat is, they're going for copper, and as you and I know, in mining, that runs in the family. Like our grandfather was in mining, and and passed away, and then the kids, like on my dad's side, passed away from cancer because of contamination. So it's still going on from the mining, and to let people know, like that what mining is going to do to you, and I don't think they understand that.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
Because, living in next to the border town, Globe,
Mm-hmm.
Arizona, and it's such a mining town because it's the what's it called? The copper triangle.
Yeah.
Um, People forget because mining has been so for like their forces to show that this is the only way to survive financially, right? In these
Right.
small border towns. And so after generation, they believe that this is the only way to provide for your family. And I told Nalin, because when she was at Globe High School, I said, and her biggest obstacles was her peers, because now they're proud of mining. See, when you talk about
Yes.
our grandfather, he was forced.
Right.
It wasn't a choice. He was forced.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and I said, look at the history of mining. I said, they got minorities and white people that had no status, no power, no money to be put in these dangerous jobs because they were dealing with toxic chemicals. It was a dangerous job where they could fall and die. They were going to get killed, and they viewed them as their life was replaceable. They didn't view them as their lives meant something, that it was important. I said, so these families that are so pro mining, I told her, I said, I guarantee you, if their great grandpa was alive or their great great grandfather, they would be telling them, don't do this.
Yeah. Right.
I said, because they were forced, their lives were disposable, and their families suffered from it, because we
Mm.
all deal, if you look at the history, and it's, what you bring up is the health care of the situation. There's a rise in cancer.
Mm-hmm.
They don't live to a grade of expectant life, like
Right.
their lives are cut short, and but there's no talks about it because they're like, this is the only way to make money. And that's what's really sad, is the mining companies are manipulating the people, because there's so much more in this world that we need profession, for them to be how you say it, like their profession,
Yeah.
Healthcare. There's so many things that you can do. Environmental issue, going to environmental studies, water. I mean, there's so many ways you can create a career profession, and it doesn't just have to be mining.
Right.
And then when you look at talking about that, you look at Arizona right now is pushing to go green. Biden came out with his green bill. How can you actually go green if you continue to mine and take all the water?
Right.
Electric cars,
Mm-hmm.
solar power, all these things that are supposed to be better for the earth, when yet there's going to be no water left. So how is it going to even operate?
Right. Yeah. And when you talk about mining, how Globe, the history of Globe and Miami and all these mining towns that you're talking about, like, I don't know why they think that it's going to be like that. I mean, with technology today, they don't need a couple of workers. You know what I mean? Like back then, yeah, you could probably live off that, make a career, all these things, everybody's going to get employed, but not today. They don't need that many people. And so
Yeah.
them thinking like, oh, we want the mining back. It's not. It's not the same. It's not going to be the same. You know, they don't even need you guys. You know, they got technicians. You know, but they're saying they do, but they don't. You know, because as you know, the mining is different these days. It's not like the old way.
No, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Because if you look at Resolution Copper and their campaign is they're going to bring thousands of jobs,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And yet it's supposed to be this blockade mine which no human being can resist the heat,
Mm-hmm.
7,000 feet under the earth, and it's all going to be remote from Australia.
Right.
Like, right now they're like just trying to manipulate the people because they're like, okay, one, it hasn't went into full operation. They're not operating,
Mm-hmm.
and so they're saying, okay, let's get these people, let's contract these people, let's hire all, and the the history of mining too, when it comes to minority people, is that they'll hire all these minorities, and then once their benefit is going to kick in, they fire them all.
Right.
So what do you think about Resolution Copper is not going to do the same?
Right.
One, they don't need the people, they don't need the manpower because it's all mechanical, it's all engineered. It's going to be operated remotely from a different country.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're not going to want to fulfill their obligation,
Right.
because even though they don't say it, it didn't change. Our lives are still disposable, whether we die or from toxic chemicals or get hurt on the job or just fire them.
Yeah.
And they don't look, and then you look at the history of the bust and boom,
Mm-hmm.
and copper is not going to be there forever. Superior needs to wake up. They made more money with tourism than what they're going to do with Resolution Copper.
Yeah.
They're not even going to get the tax credit for it because it's outside of their city line. I mean, it's just, I wish people would wake up, and realize that we're fighting for all of them and their way of life, because you're not going to survive, from environmental issues to religious issues, and then even to financial issues, because Resolution Copper is, giving them not even pennies, less than pennies, to operate, and to using money to manipulate these towns, and what's going to happen to their people because they're not making more decisions for their survival. Right. And their well-being. And so it's really heartbreaking, and makes you angry because you just want to wake them up and say, really look at the history, do your research.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially with copper, because I said this before in an earlier podcast, is that there's so much recycled copper. People say we need copper. There is so much recycled copper out there. Like, they don't even know. Like I tell you before, I have a friend who's in an electrical business, and all they have is just so many. They don't know what to do with all this copper wire. Should they go turn it in and get money for it? There's just so many recycled copper out there that we don't need to be mining right now. If you want to use copper for your phone or your car, we got so much recycled copper. Like, they don't even know what to do with it. That we have so much.
So they rather destroy the earth than put work into recycling.
Yeah.
And here that would benefit us all. I mean, they have enough recycle copper for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've seen so many.
Yeah, they just don't want to put the work into it, I guess, and that's the sad thing.
Yeah, they don't. They just want to go with them. Yeah, again, like with the mining. The word mining means jobs, and that's an old way of thinking again. And if you go in, when I go in a Globe or Miami, you see all the billboards, and they're pretty smart too. Because what they do is they put our own people on those poster boards.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, oh, look at that. So it's pretty manipulative about how they do stuff like that. And I always talk to nowadays, because of sponsorship, I have we go dance, our Pomo tradition, and the first thing I always ask is, who's sponsoring you guys? That's my first question, because you get Resolution Copper or what's the other one, Freeport. They
Mhm.
get in there and they sponsor these native events. And I don't think some of the native organizations, either they don't care or they don't know who they are. And it's like, dude, how you getting all these guys like we're fighting for, to stop mining, and then you're using them like the Nabby's using them, or
Yeah.
different things. They're using the sponsorship money, and it's like we're just uphill battle for us all the time, especially for Apache Stronghold.
Yeah, because it's sad because the tribes are fighting. There's so many people that are fighting to protect what is left,
Mm.
and that's the only way Resolution Copper or like Freeport or any of these corporations to get in and to say, look, we're mitigating. Look, they do agree with us. They are supporting us.
Mm-hmm.
Is to flash money, and because it goes back to two things: is one, telling us that we needed this is the only way to survive,
Mm-hmm.
and the other is the forcing to lose our way of life, and because we're competing with this new world that we're living in,
Mm-hmm.
and so a lot of people, especially our own indigenous communities, either aren't told the what's happened to our people, or they just choose not
They see the money.
to yeah, they
Yeah.
think of money first.
Yeah. They see the
and
money.
and it makes me sad because we can be upset, and we could be angry, but the way I was taught was that you pray for them, because you know and I guess even my own, like, trying to convince myself not to get upset, is that one, this is that simulation that they place on us to exterminate us, and
Right.
that's the one way. They can't kill us now, so what are they going to do? Is take away our spirit, you know
Mm-hmm.
and so I pray for those people, because deep down, that they feel something that's wrong, right?
Right.
And so I hope that someday that they open up their mind and their spirit and actually make the right decision to not participate,
Mm-hmm.
or be take money from these corporations like Resolution Copper. And like how you brought up Nabby, is the one way to get into our people is through the love of sports.
Right.
You look at the communities that are very involved in, like, basketball is a form of, especially for the youth now, is to be proud of their people, represent their communities, their family, their tribe, their people. And then it gets them it's an outlet for them to stay out of trouble, because they feel that they're doing something, and now
Mm-hmm.
you have a corporation taking that away from them.
Right. Yeah, and they're doing it kind of like, I mean, if you look at some native events and their flyers, and there's so many sponsors on the bottom, like the logo.
Yeah.
You got to really look at those logos. You know what I mean? You got to make
Uh-huh.
sure, like, okay, let me look at the logos, or let me, if they ask, like, let's say they ask Pat Stronghold to go talk at an event, or they ask, me to go, to bring a group to dance Pomo. Well, let me see your sponsors. And I think everybody should be doing that. Like, who's your sponsors? Because even like in New Mexico, when they had, I think, the Santa Fe market,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't know that it was Exxon that was sponsoring them. You didn't pay
Yeah.
attention, that their logo's on there. You know what I mean? So a lot of people were upset about that. And I was like, well, that's why you got to pay attention, because
Yeah.
it's there. The fight's there.
Yeah, because you have the people fighting against them, and then they're using us. They're making us token Indians when
Mm,
they do that, because then they publicize it, and when you die, you can't take that money, and that's the sad thing is about with these events that are, held by indigenous organizations, is you can't make two wrongs a right.
mm-hmm.
you know if you're trying to do what's right for the youth or for the people, and show that we still exist, then you can't be taking money from a corporation that's trying to kill us.
Right. Right, and them saying, "Oh, it'll be okay," like just like we'll be all right, yeah, and
Yeah.
that's how they make it sound, when they do stuff like that. So again, like Resolution Copper, you got to be careful with them. If anybody's taking money, or if anybody's working for them, it's just something that that they're destroying this Arizona area. And like you said, like Superior, like I heard that before in a video, that Superior can make just as much money as Sedona as a tourist spot,
Yeah.
and that's more than Resolution Copper can give them. But they want to go the easy route and just do the mining.
Yeah, and people got to remember is that resolution states that 75% of the copper is going to uh, Australia, it's going to China, it's going to, all those foreign countries, and that we only get, 25%. And then we have to buy it back from them. Like
Right.
that makes no sense.
Right.
We're not gaining money, we're losing money as the country.
Mm-hmm.
And how can someone be okay with that? One, destroying the earth, destroying a religion, destroying the water, and then trying to put money into, like the whole climate change issue,
Mm-hmm.
and try to make it earth friendly. When you continue to destroy it, there's no way to clean it up.
Right.
And then you have to spend money, to
Mm-hmm.
buy copper. I mean,
and then when when the Resolution give you that money, you got to pay the taxes on that still.
right?
Yeah, so it just doesn't make sense. I mean, if you don't want to, okay, like to a non-native, if you don't want to believe in our way that we're trying to save and what we're trying to do, then don't understand that you're gonna lose this land, you're gonna lose this earth, you're gonna lose, you're gonna lose the water. I mean, don't you get that? That's what baffles me all the time when I think about stuff like that.
And then what makes me sad is I had a friend. He's a activist artist.
Mm-hmm.
He uses art for activism, and he did this this display about how the world's going to look for our kids. And it's crazy because of the destruction that's going to happen, is that at some point our kids are going to have to wear, like, I think they're called like those like bodysuits, like how people go for like diseases, and they have to wear the whole headgear and the whole whole outfit. That's the only way our kids are going to be able to play outside. Like that's where we're headed.
Right.
And I always tell the kids, it makes what we're fighting against Resolution Copper and these corporations that are destroying the earth is like the cartoon Lorax.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what's gonna happen.
Right. And
them,
it's just gonna be horrible. I mean, even like people don't talk about. We keep warning about the tailings of the mine too, and that how bad that is in contamination, and just the dust of the tailings can contaminate a whole area.
Mm-hmm.
And in that area, how windy it is, and all the monsoons and stuff like that. It's gonna get everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, then they say that they're going to water it down so it's not airborne. Well, how are we going to water it when we have no water?
Yeah.
Exactly. Like it don't make sense. Like people need to wake up. The Tucson area is going to be heavily affected with toxic chemicals flying in the air, heading their direction. The same way with Phoenix with, it's only 50 miles away. Oak Flat's only 50 miles away from Phoenix, Arizona. Can you imagine what they're going to face? Then we look at the toxic tailings of it going into our stream. They're going to seep into our aquifer. I mean, not only are we talking about depletion, but first it's going to be contaminated. Mm-hmm. Then it's not going to be there. Mm-hmm. And so, even though these cities around Oak Flat need to wake up, because you are affected. You're going to be affected.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to survive. I mean, from the temperature of it going, I mean, Phoenix hits what? 125, you know? Mm-hmm. And can you imagine another 10 to 15 degrees hotter? Right. I mean, that's what's going to happen because the heat has to escape.
Mm-hmm.
And with the, as it subsides, and my dad, the best way he explains it to is like a car. You need the water, you need what is it called, antifreeze, to
Yeah.
keep the car cool. That's what the water is. It's keeping our Mother Earth cool. It has to function with with the water, and if the water is gone,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to run anymore. Just
Right.
like our vehicles. Like, can you drive a car? Can you operate a car without water, without antifreeze, or everything that entails to it? You can't. You can't even go 5 feet down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what's going to happen to this earth.
Yeah.
And people need to just realize it. And you try to explain in simplest form to very scientific form, religious ways, but it takes people to really be open-minded and open-hearted about the situation and how it's going to affect all people. And that's the importance of Oak Flat, with the Apache Stronghold, leading this fight, with my dad Wensler sacrificing his whole life for what Yulson, God, Creator, has created,
Mm-hmm.
is so that we continue to survive. Every single one of us on this earth, and
Mm-hmm.
all the other states need to be scared, because if it's going to happen here, it doesn't mean it can't happen where they're at.
Right.
And so it's it's sad, but I'm hopeful, because looking at our history of our people, we're still very much alive, and
Mm-hmm.
we're very resilient people, and we're going to continue to fight. And that's what I try to remind myself, because with my three older girls, they were born, because Nolan's 24 and
Mm-hmm.
Najoni's 23 and Bonsa is 19. They were born in the fight,
Right.
just like your kids. They're born in the fight. They knew they were going to pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
And all the kids in those ages. But with my last one, she's 3.
Mm-hmm.
What is going to be left for her?
Right.
Is it only the idea of what it is to be Apache, or will she be able to be an Apache and connect to our holy places and connect to her way of life?
Mm-hmm.
And I have to try to remind myself that our people have shown throughout this genocide that we're still existing. So I try to put that hope that she's going to continue to exist. And right now, I wouldn't say the best outcome, but what I could pray for is that she'll be able to pick up the fight,
Right.
not be taken from her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're all in this fight, and like you said, like our parents, they, that's when the fighting began. We got in the, and then we got there, and then now our kids are right in the middle of it, and so just dealing with that, and with these mining companies, they go for all the poverty cities and all these low economy cities, and so that's how, a lot of them want that money. And so,
Yeah.
like it's an easy target for the mining companies, and these little towns right now. Like I always talk like about Globe, Miami. Like we have family in Globe, Miami, and we have family that's married to people in Globe, Miami. But I when I hear the stories of like your dad and my mom like fighting because they were native Apaches, and like one of the things that always reminds me is that that Globe Theater downtown
Mm-hmm.
Globe. My mom told me that when they all went there, they had to sit on top because Apaches weren't allowed to sit on the bottom to watch the movies. And I was like, damn, man, that's recent. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that town that we go to right now, it was that racist. You know what I mean? Like, ah, dang, it just, and so like when I tell my kids, like, I remember like when you guys marched through there, like, okay, like Oak Flat, and a lot are, we have some really good non-native supporters, and friends, they're
Mm-hmm.
like family. And they see that racism, and like I always tell everybody, like when my dad, one of the nicest guys out there, holding the Oak Flat sign, someone yelling at him, "Hey, go back to the reservation," And
Yeah.
I told him like it's still alive today. People don't think it is, but it is, And
Yeah.
so we're fighting for this mining, and all they see is natives or Apaches, and go back to your reservation. That's all they say.
Yeah, and it's, bringing up stories like that. It
Mm,
makes me think of grandma
yeah,
when we would go to town and she was like always in and out, right? She never wanted to be there. And
yeah,
then I remember one time we had pulled up to a restaurant and I said, I was telling her, come on, grandma. And even my dad had talked about it. And
mm,
she'd be like, no, I don't want to go in. I'm not eating in there. And we all kind of looked at her like, why? And she said, this town used to say no dogs, no Indians allowed.
yeah,
I don't want to give them my money. I don't want to sit in there.
right.
And that's our grandparents,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a grandmother that helped raise us.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like we were talking about the history, that's why it's so very much alive,
Right.
and I feel very blessed and even privileged to come from our family that's willing to step out of the box, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's still very embedded in our people because we talk about racism and we talk about the history, and a lot of our tribal members go to these border schools, right? These border town schools.
Right.
And I remember Boss says senior year, she didn't go to school that day, and her friends, they're all Apache, were sitting in, I believe, in like the auditorium, and these white kids were throwing books at them and saying derogatory um, uh, sayings to them,
Yeah.
being racist.
Slanders. Yeah.
Yeah, and then she was there. She was in this group chat, and they were talking about it. And she was like, "Well, did you tell anybody?" And the first thing they said was, "No, nobody's gonna care or do anything about it." And then so she comes to me and she's like, "Mom," and telling me the situation and what happened. And she's like, "I told them that me and you can help them." And I said, "Babe, like I'm willing to help, but this is the trauma that's happened to our people."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and that's a sad because you have those that fight like our family.
Mm.
And then you have those that are scared because they're embedded, like I said, in our DNA now,
Right.
And I know at some point somebody in their family is going to stand up, it's just waiting for that person. But it's so very much alive what
Mm-hmm.
we deal with, being followed in stores today
Right.
still.
Yes.
I mean, talking about the march, I mean, there was a business that was like, yeah, we should get the water hose and spray them all down and make them go back.
Yeah.
And then I even remember with the Mount Graham run and Bonce's coming of age ceremony at Mount Graham, the Forest Service was trying to make us stay on the reservation and was saying that the 1800 laws still exist and we're not allowed to leave, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so that really showed how the United States government haven't revised the Constitution, hasn't revised these laws that were placed to imprison us, that we're still facing them. But the only difference is that these border towns know they can make money off of us. So
Right.
they're like, okay, go ahead and let them shop because
Yeah.
we're thriving off their money.
Yeah. And they'll use all these, native artifacts for their stores and things like that, to make their money too in those small towns. And those are like, those towns like I tell my son, like, I went to school in Phoenix, and by near Central, and I went to school in Oakland, and there were so many different nationalities in those schools. And I told him I never, fought one time until I went to a border town school, when it was just,
Yeah.
when it's a small town, I got in fights. When it was big cities, never fought one time,
Yeah,
and
because they're so diverse.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So I always told them, like, I always kept my kids out here, but we always went back, and they made every ceremony and everything. I always make sure we went back, but I always tell them, small towns are cool, but it was a lot of fighting, and like as like even in California, you don't leave the res by yourself. You need to take somebody with you,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's still like that. And when you just
Yeah,
go in those
it's
towns,
so alive. It's so alive. Like people think it's not, but
mm-hmm.
we still face it, from,
Yeah.
a lot of us minorities, because you include, the African American, the Latinos, like all of us. But it seems like they're so delusional and it's disguised so well that that's like, it doesn't, And I guess the one thing good about Trump being president is he brought all that ugliness out. Like people, it was like hidden, and people thought, "Oh no, it's not like that." But you're like, "No, it is." You
Yeah,
know,
right.
this is what you're seeing now. We've seen our whole life. Like,
Yeah, and it just made people come out. You know, people
mm-hmm.
could come out and say what they want. You know, and you know, I had you know, some people had changed during that time. You know, and there's some non-natives that I don't talk to no more. You know, because of their how they feel and what they say. But before that, we were cool. You know,
Yeah,
and so it's just weird. You know, like the way things change and what we fight for and like again, you know, we got to vote and we got to, you know, fight for our state because this is where it starts from.
mm-hmm.
So, but
No,
if we go back to the, like, you know, the Oak Flat, the run, I think it's great. I mean, I love seeing everybody there, and you know, thank you for having us come over to do the Pomo blessing. You know, and it's just a great feeling over there with, you know, it's like for me and you, it's going to be tough. You know, we every time we go, you know, in this, as for ceremonies, you know, we, you know, people pass away, you know, and so, you know, my dad was there, and he, you know, he's on the other side now, and this last year, our Auntie Patsy was there, and you know, she's on the other side now. So, you know, you know, all of us needs to come and be there, you know, all the family, because, you know, like, you never know who's going to be there and who's not going to be there anymore. And I think it's
yeah,
very important to go, you know, if you're a family, for us too, especially as family, because, you know, I'm glad I was there, you know, and see Auntie Patsy. I'm glad I was there to see, you know, my dad's, you know, be with my dad and see him sing, because, you know, life is short. And with our, you know, mentioning my dad and my Auntie Patsy, you know, with cancer, that comes again from mining, you
yeah,
know, and so it's just like, it's just an ongoing battle for us. And so, you know, I know a lot of people don't understand that. You know, we could, you know, drill in their heads as much as we can, but they're not going to understand that feeling that we have, you know. And so, like, for me and you, you know, especially you, because you're, you know, with the Apache Stronghold, is like, I got to go back, you know, because that's where, you know, our family is at.
yeah. No, you know, with me, this is my, I think, let's see, my fourth year organizing,
Mm-hmm.
5 years organizing the run. Um, and why I decided to pick up the run
Mm-hmm.
was because when my dad moved home back to Oak Flat,
Mm-hmm.
um, he remember him looking at me and was like, "I'm free." Like, even though he's still a product of the United States government, like,
Mm-hmm.
I guess physically, you know, or in the system.
Mm-hmm.
When I left him that night when he moved back, um, it was the first time I seen my dad free, like
Yeah.
his spirit free, and that um, really changed my life,
Right.
because I look at him and I'm like, dang, I want to be free like
Mm-hmm.
that, you know.
Yeah.
But it's the preparations that we as individuals need to make, right? There's a lot of sacrifice, and it can be scary, and there's so many things that entail into that. And so when the Oak Flat March was supposed to be coming up, and my dad was like, Ness, I'm already home. Like, you know, how am I going to go back to San Carlos, to go back to old San Carlos and then run out again?
Right.
And I remember looking at him, and you know, I was like, yeah, I mean, it makes no sense, you know?
Yeah.
And I said, but Dad, I think I'm ready to start organizing it and take it up, because there's people like me that need it still. You
Right.
know, there's our people that still need it, and then there's the non-indigenous community that still needs to learn,
Mm-hmm.
and they too need something to heal, right? Because that's what the whole run is about.
Right.
Is about healing, and also sharing that knowledge of the history of our people, and also to bring healing for those non-indigenous people. Like, my dad's good friend was like, how do I help, you know? And he's like, I feel in a really awkward situation because my people is the one that placed you on there. And
Mm-hmm.
my dad turned to him and said, well, walk with me out.
Right.
And so, you know, there's, because, you know, not all indigenous people are bad, right?
Right.
We have good allies, great people that believe and want to protect, whether they believe in our spirituality and they've gained their own spirituality, you
Mm-hmm.
know, in this fight. and or believed to protect the earth on the environmental side is, we have these great allies to come and be supportive.
Mm.
And so when I decided to take up the run, that was the purpose, was continue the healing for those that can't be free like my dad, or that want to help and heal within their own selves of what their ancestors did to our people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a part of healing is recognizing the bad so that you can move forward in a good way, right?
Right.
And so, Oak Flat Run March has been very vital and important to the fight because it brings this awareness, it brings people together,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a creative healing because it's more. Oak Flat brings out so much ugliness in this world,
Right.
and not just fighting Resolution Copper, but the deceit of how America was founded, and us coming together in prayer, because it's not just an event, it's not just a run, it's a ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
We're walking the same footprints of our ancestors,
Mm-hmm.
and to be connected to them, to feel their heartbeat, and those that have passed. You're right, we've lost so many people in this fight, from our family members to like Roy Chavez, who was a great ally in fighting to protect Oak Flat,
Mm-hmm.
to other family members that were in it. And what better way to carry on this legacy is to continue to fight and continue to fight in prayer. And so I always look forward to the run coming, to bring all the people together,
Mm-hmm.
because like my uncle, your dad, our aunt, our
Mm-hmm.
cousins, our grandparents that were with us through this whole fight,
Mm-hmm.
they are in the spirit world, but they're fighting in that spirit world for us. They're in
Mm-hmm.
we're here physically fighting, but they're fighting in the spirit world for us, fighting to protect Oak Flat and all the sacred places. And so, I look forward to it because I know they're marching with us. I know they're
Right.
running with us. I know they're standing next to, when, I was really glad that you were still picking up the pommel blessing, because that's what your dad would have wanted.
Right.
And you're carrying on that legacy, a holy legacy,
Mm-hmm.
a spiritual legacy. It's not a legacy of fame. You're carrying those prayers and those songs, those ceremonies, and that's what's really important, because if those are gone, like and they're tied to our holy places, so if we lose our holy places, then that's when we start losing our ways, right? Our
Right.
prayers, our songs, our dances, our sweat lodges, all of it. It'll be gone. And so it's so important that we continue to carry it, and learn and pass it down to our own children,
Mm-hmm.
and have those continue, shows how you say, set the example and continue to have those discussion, because someday it's going to be them,
Right.
And so with the march and the run coming, I mean, I'm so grateful and so blessed for all those that participate. And and I could put the flyer out, I can make the announcement, like here, being on podcast, and I might trigger someone's attention on it, but it's those holy places that are calling onto them,
Mm-hmm.
and bringing them physically there. And so it's it's such a sight to see, because we're not we bring everybody involved, no matter what religion and what
Yeah.
race you are. We include everybody because God created us all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just important to unite, to unify, to be one.
Right.
It goes back to my dad's vision: one drum, one prayer, one circle,
Mm-hmm.
and how it used to be. And we need to come back to that. So with the run being with all walks of life, is that we are being that one drum, one prayer, one circle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we're going to survive, because we're facing such destructions that are happening all over this world, that no matter who you are, we need to unify. We need to be together and stand together strong, and have that spiritual connection, to come up with a solution to save all people, to save humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know the history, the earth could renew itself, but
Mm-hmm.
we're fighting for our survival. And that survival is protecting Mother Earth and protecting our holy places like Oak Flat. Because once it's destroyed, it's gone forever. And what does that mean for us Apache people?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they're all stepping stools, like from one sacred site to another. That's how our prayers are reached to Creator.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's kind of like when you leap from one rock to the next,
Mm-hmm.
what happens when there's no rock to leap to?
Right.
So all sacred sites have to be protected, and those people need to be aware of it, because if Oak Flat goes, how are you going to get to the next holy place?
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's the thing, like that's the most important thing. I mean, there's thing that goes, you see things that go on social media that, some days get upset about and they want to change things. And there's things that are, I mean, yeah, they're important, but they're small compared to what we're fighting for right now. Like I'm not worried about someone saying something racist. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the land. I'm not, I'm worried about the sacred area, our sacred or holy sites. I'm not worried about if, a celebrity or someone said, something they didn't like. That's not important to me right now. Just the small things are not important. I mean, yeah, it's good to bring it up, but it's not important. Like we're still fighting for our land. We're still fighting for our sacred sites. Land back, when people hear land back, it's just to keep to keep the environment safe. Mm-hmm. It's not for us to have. It's for us to keep it safe if it's in our hands. And so, it's just things like that. That's the most important thing. What you're fighting for, I think MMIW is very important, because that is a history and part in our family history also. So just a lot of things like that is very important. Like as I called this podcast, a fight for our existence, things that we are fighting for to keep our existence is sacred sites, holy, keeping our native people alive, health, everything. And those are things that are important to me, right now, and are keeping our culture alive. And one of those is fighting for Oak Flat.
Yes. You're right, because I guess when you bring up racism, how can somebody be racist to us when there's no world to live in?
Right.
And so it's, even protecting those people,
mm-hmm.
Even though they hurt us and make us angry, is like, okay, say all you want, do all you want, but I'm standing here protecting you.
Right.
Because you're not going to be able to say exists,
mm-hmm.
and hopefully someday that racism is gone, because they see what we're doing, all people. And it's amazing to me that they can't comprehend that,
mm-hmm.
I don't care that you don't like me because I'm Apache or in Native, I just care because I'm trying to help you survive.
Right.
And so it's, it's just once they wake up, and us, we're smart, we know nobody's going anywhere.
Yeah.
We're not saying go back to Europe or wherever you're from.
Yeah.
We're just saying, okay, let's take care of the land we live on.
You're here now, so let's work together.
Yeah. You're not, obviously you made this your home, and if it's your home, then protect it. Just like your home that's built 4 walls and a roof. Mm-hmm. You're not going to let somebody disrespect it or destroy it. You're not going to let somebody knock it down. Mm-hmm. So, protect the home that your house sits on, because you're not going to have it if it's gone.
Yeah.
And so it's just waking people up. And that's why, going back to the run, is so important that it continues, and bringing people together, because we're trying to make the world aware of what's happening here and now, and what's going to happen to the future. Like I said, we look 7 generations ahead. 7 generations ahead, they might not be able to exist,
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and I think that's why, this Oak Flat is very important. Like, again, I like powwows. I like, all these other things. But, if we get a lot of people to come to Oak Flat, it's for a cause, to save water, to save land, to save the environment, and that's very important. We also got to get our own people together, and let them know about what we're fighting for, and what, and mining is not just in Oak Flat. I mean, you saw that thing of have a Supai fighting, for I think what uranium
Yeah.
and mining up there, and that's a beautiful area. And was it like Kachong are fighting for a mine?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
down in Yuma.
yeah, and Yuma. I mean, so the fight's everywhere. You just got to open your eyes, and one of the main starts is going to be Oak Flat, and that's where they know the mining started from, in that area. The fight for that.
You know what made me think of right now was um I have a family member that's fighting cancer,
Mm,
and they can't operate on him. They can't remove the tumor. And so my question was, well, why isn't it not operable? Why can't you take out the tumor?
mm,
And they said, well, it's like Swiss cheese. You're going to have holes all inside your body, and it's not going to be able to function.
mm-hmm.
And so they're thinking about that. It's like the earth, right?
Right.
It's like these minings are these tumors that are killing Mother Earth, and they're digging these holes, and they're taking out the veins and which is like the water. They're destroying it. And how is it going to survive? Like you look at Swiss cheese, a bunch of holes.
Right.
If you hold on quick, hold on.
Is that your res dog over there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is that res like sitting outside.
Hear the
And
train, and then you hear the dog.
protecting me. Hey. But
Warning!
yeah, you
Warning!
look at you look at Swiss cheese. Can you imagine our bodies being like that?
Right.
We wouldn't survive. Can you imagine Mother Earth being like that? You can't survive.
Mhm.
She's not going to be able to.
Yeah.
And so that's it's like cancer. It's just growing and growing, and then it's just going to destroy everything.
Hmm. And it's just like, I brought up in one of the podcasts with my cousin, like Sulphur Bank Mine, that happened in 1872. We're still cleaning that up today. There's areas that you can't walk on for a couple of hours during the day. And people always ask, like, well, doesn't EPA do anything to help Oak Flat? No, people don't understand that EPA is a cleanup crew. That's what EPA is to me. They're there to clean up after things are contaminated. They're not there to stop contamination. They're there to clean up after. And so a lot of people don't understand that about EPA, and so like with Oak Flat, they let that mining go. It's going to take 100 years to clean that thing up. If it's still there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just mind blowing how people don't understand that, especially, if you're not, like I say, if you're not Apache or native, non-natives, then you need to think about stuff like that.
Yeah, so true. It's they just need to open up their eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and even our indigenous community, because they've assimilated, some of us, and you just like wake up,
Mm-hmm.
how are you gonna survive?
Right.
It's how are you gonna live? Where are you gonna get your water? Where are you gonna get? How are you gonna pick your acorn?
Right.
Because once they realize, I pray that it doesn't happen, that Oak Flat is destroyed, but that means they're going to come after the next place to get rid of us,
Right. Mm-hmm. Oh. All right, Vanessa. Well, I'll let you go, but we just wanted to say that Oak Flat is February 15th through the 17th, right? Or
No, 15th through the 18th.
15th through the
So,
18th.
yeah, I'll have another flyer come out with more details of what will be happening. I just want to remind everybody, keep all of us in prayer
Mm-hmm.
during this March run. It's a crucial part of the fight for our existence,
Mm-hmm.
and to bring awareness and education to all people, and that we're including everyone. Everyone welcome. It's just not an Apache fight. It's not just an Apache ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
It's, for all people. It'll start Thursday evening, again Friday morning, and then Saturday so Friday we'll start from the concentration camp of Old San Carlos
Mm-hmm.
at the monument. We'll reach another part of the reservation, and for the night, it's going to be at the sports complex here in San Carlos, and then we'll start from there Friday morning, and get to we'll run all the way into the very beginning part of the border town of Globe, Arizona. We'll march through. Um, we'll pick up a run here and there to get us out further. We'll march through the town of Miami and end at the shrine before you
Yes.
go into the canyon.
Mm-hmm.
That Friday, that Friday, and then Saturday in the morning we'll run from the shrine to Oak Flat, and then all the prayers and ceremony from different tribes and different people will congregate. We'll come together. We'll have whole, all kind of blessings. Food will be provided.
Yes.
Um, just bring your. It is cold, like you said. We were there this weekend. There's snow.
Yes.
We had a beautiful hike to Apache Leap.
Mm-hmm.
And it was for prayer because all those that have lost their lives fighting for us, not wanting to be exiled from Oak Flat, from our holy places, and that had, were trying to escape and not be imprisoned, that lost their lives there,
Yeah.
and just take on those blessings because our ancestors are still very much a part of who we are. Their blood runs in us, their spirit runs in us.
Yeah.
And so it's this weekend was beautiful just to be around the people and the fire and hear the songs and know that our men were in sweat. I was really glad my dad has continued that and made it a part of the fight. It's a beautiful blessing, and to be able to witness and be a part of, and it's getting us ready for the run.
Yes.
And so that that's everything my dad has done in his life has always been a message from Creator. He never moves without having those visions or those dreams or those messages come to him, and that's what's taught me to do the same thing. And so this run, it's going to be great. It's going to be beautiful. I just ask everyone to keep those that are traveling in prayer, those that are going to be within prayers, and then those that can't make it to please pray for us and pray for the fight to protect Oak Flat. Then we'll departure on Sunday after ceremony, but food will be provided. Just those that are camping, bring warm clothes, bring your camping supplies and gear, wear warm clothes. But I can't wait to see everybody. I can't wait to be with my family and family that we've created, and to meet new people. I'm looking forward to it, February 15th through the 18th, and keep an eye out for more info to come. It'll be on the Apache Stronghold website. It'll be on our social media. Share it.
Oh, yes. And we'll put it on. Yeah. When we put this episode on the podcast, we'll also put the Apache Stronghold link on the podcast so everyone can see that. And then, like Vanessa said, it's a great event, a great blessing, for people to be there. It's awareness. So, I'm excited to be there every year. So, I know I see you every other a lot, but I'm always happy to see you all the time, you and your family. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, and I'm always looking forward to seeing you guys, and being, and this is where we teach our youth, and I was just telling Boss said, like, I'm really happy to have seen our kids together this weekend, and I said I grew up really close with their dad, with you and your sisters and your sister, and just to be, because you guys are the next ones, and you guys got to pick it up, so youth are always welcome to participate, and good energy, good blessings. We're fighting that evil, so we need those prayers, because what we're fighting is evil. That evil that lives within these corporations and this government that want to exile our people and all people, because that's what they're doing. What they did to the indigenous people, they're doing it to all people now, and that's what we need to remind people, that you're no different than us anymore.
Yes. All right, Vanessa. Well, thank you very much. And if you got any more updates, just give me a call. We'll get back on a podcast and the episode and talk about any updates or what's coming up, anything new that's coming on for the run, okay?
Okay, sounds great. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Ness. I'll talk to you later, okay?
All right, I'll talk to you later.
Okay, love you.
Love you too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
All right, well, thank you. That was my cousin Vanessa. She runs that whole, she had, my Uncle Wencer had moved to Oak Flat, and now Vanessa is starting to, be the organizer for it. And I had to let her go because when you hear res dogs barking like that, you got to stop and go see what they're barking about. It could be any, they're out there, they're out there to warn you about something, and you got to go out there and check. I mean, they could be barking and looking at in the black, at night, so you don't know what they're staring at. So when they were barking like that, I was like, okay, she better head out and go check what's going on. But I want to thank Vanessa for her coming out. And again, I'll put the event link on the podcast, on the website, and on the episode. If you go on, it'll be on Google and Spotify, so you can check it out there. And thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you again. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you all for tuning in to the Fight for Existence podcast. If you guys want to keep up with the podcast in general, what you could do is follow the social media account. The Instagram account is going to be Fight for Our Existence. Again, that's Fight number 4 Our Existence. Go ahead and give that a follow. And if you guys have any questions for us, or you guys would like to be on the podcast, in the Instagram, there's a link. Go ahead and click that. No matter what kind of platform you guys are listening to this podcast on, there's always that plus or that follow button. So go ahead and click that so you guys can get notifications when we upload our next episode. And if you guys are listening on Spotify, what you can do is go ahead and rate the show. And if you guys are only listening on Apple Podcasts, what you can also do is write a review for the show. Thank you all for tuning in to the Fight for Existence podcast, and we will talk to you next time.